Your walking with Mr. Gandhi during the Bharat Jodo Yatra was seen by some people as a kind of, not just a sort of picking of sides, as it were, but maybe a precursor to your coming back or coming to India in a fuller public role, or if not coming back to India, certainly taking on a more formal political role. Is that something you've considered? You know, many years ago, I remember asking you this, and you said, my wife would kill me. It's been many years since. Does she feel more favorably about it? Do you feel more favorably about the idea of your being in politics?
No, no. I mean, she's of exactly the same opinion. So let's, I mean, put that on the shelf. No, the real, I mean, I feel very concerned about India. Why do I, you know, you get a lot of flack from the troll army. I get a tremendous amount of flack from the troll army. Why do I keep talking, even though every time I talk, they find some sort of side issue to deflect what I'm saying? Because I care about India. I care very much about the idea of India that I grew up with. It had a lot of imperfections. I think we're fixing many of those imperfections. But I also think there were some fundamental truths there that we need to preserve. The idea of democracy in India, we could be a beacon for the rest of the world. I think we will be a beacon if we make the course corrections that we need to make. And I want to keep speaking out. These are the course corrections we need to make, because we have the potential to be a great power, but not just a great power in strength, a great power in showing that we have ideals, we care about them, and we will live up to them. And that is something very few countries can do. But I think we can do it. But we need to work on it. And that's why we need people like you to keep sort of, hitting at the system and saying, hey, you're not doing it right. We
Hmm.
need to do it better. And that, to my mind, is how India will progress.
Will your speaking out ever go sort of further into a more formal role in public life again?
The future is, as I said, very, very uncertain. But what I really want to do is use the tools I have, which is my ability to write and my ability to speak. And that's the best I can do. And our philosophy basically says, do the best you can and see what happens.
And I'll tell you one thing about trolls from experience. What really gets them is when they can't get under your skin. So that's something, you know. Earlier I would argue with them, and then I realized they weren't even interested in that argument. One economic question before we let you go, since we're on the subject of you and Rahul Gandhi. There was that conversation that the two of you had, and I remember that talking about GDP at that time, you said we'll be lucky if we get to 5% in that conversation. Uh, it's been a while since that conversation. Where would you realistically peg your expectation for India's growth?
So I so let me tell you, I follow very few economists, but there are some I follow closely because I think they're very sensible and they're not swayed by the desire to impress or to influence. And I think those currently would peg India around 5. Okay, but when I look at the outside world, and I see the deteriorating conditions, we will probably have a recession towards the end of this year in the United States. Uh,
Mm.
Whether the Fed does it or whether the financial sector does it, something could give by the end of the year if we're going to get growth. We have to get growth down to slow inflation, but it could come via the Fed or it could come via the financial sector. So that will impinge on India also in some ways. Commodity prices going down will be beneficial, but exports going down will not. So given all that, I say, well, 5 is aspirational at this point. Of course, there are lots of numbers. The IMF says 6 plus. Again, I'm not sure that they have a strong track record over the last few years. And I look at some of the ones that I follow who have a good track record, including the RBI, and I say,
Mm.
well, we should be careful.